Hello viewers, Media J2K here with another video. Now that the preview is out of the way, I can move on to the video of the individual items that were in that recent video of eBay acquisitions. So here we have what was in that video is the original Cobra officer and the 2020 retro Cobra trooper. And I pulled out my new mold. It's called the Elite Infantry figure, which is the Cobra Air Trooper. This figure came with the backpack and the pilot helmet with the air mask, the blue jump jetpack Cobra version. And I only did that so we could see the difference in construction between the 2020 retro carded figure and the new mold figure. And also we could see the original Cobra officer from back in 1982. Again, so this was like 1982 and a half or 1983 when the swivel arm version was released. You could see, I think, in any Cobra officer from the early 1982 83, 84 releases, the logo will always rub off. I think that there was just that paint for that silver logo just didn't work. And I think it was only the Cobra officer. I'm thinking there must have been silver logos on other figures that might still be there. But the Cobra officer are notorious for losing their chest logos. So maybe one day I could find a decal that I could stick on in its place. I've seen those being sold for different figures. Maybe they got one for the Cobra officer. But any silver Cobra logo that will fit between the straps would work. Alright, so the Cobra officer came with the AK-47. There's its file card there. The file names are unknown because they're troopers. There's multiples. So it's not just one officer. There's multiple officers. There's multiple troopers. There's multiple air troopers. So their file names will always be unknown. Maybe they know some of the file names, GIJoe intelligence, but that's not going to make it to the file card. And the military rank is 04, which is Army Major equivalent, because these probably are soldiers from foreign militaries that have joined the ranks of Cobra after being disenfranchised one way or another with living a honest life. I guess that's what it could go. All right, so this figure I received is got, I notice, good screw on that leg, but a little rusted on the right leg. The heels are still intact. The joints are pretty stiff. The O-ring's a little loose, but the left and right head turn is good. So holds his weapon, has his thumbs, has the swivel arms, and not much decoloration. I could see, maybe you can't get it on camera, but the swivel is a different color as the biceps on both sides. No cracked elbows, the swivel at the elbows, and the forearms are a different color than the biceps and the elbows. I don't know if that gets picked up on camera very good, but on film it looks okay, but in person you could tell. The biceps got one color, the elbows another, and the forearm another. Gloves are back, legs are not discolored that I can notice, but let's see if you can get that on camera. No, you can't. In person, the waist is a tad bit different shade than the legs and the torso. Again, 1982, what was that? 44 years ago? At least 44? Well, not quite, right? 43 and a half at least, because this is the swivel arm version. And if I don't make it clear all the time, I prefer the swivel arm version because I like articulation. That's why I'm not a fan of He-Man figures and Star Wars figures very much from the 80s, because they didn't articulate much. And then if you don't remember, I do. In 1997, they started re-releasing the figures, the Star Wars figures, but like with muscular bodies and in action poses already, but still only the 5 points of articulation. Maybe they had bendable knees. I don't quite remember. I just remember Luke all of a sudden looked like, Hulk Hogan without the facial hair. It was weird. And all the figures kind of looked like Chewie. I think Chewie was pretty set, but Han and Leia, they were all in poses, kind of like their legs weren't straight. And those were just weird figures. I don't know what Ken or Hasbro was thinking back then. All right, real quick. These new molds had the multi-articulated ankles, not articulated shins, the double jointed, not pinless knees, not double jointed elbows, but the swivel is right there at the joint. So instead of an extra piece like the ARAH figures had, it just swivels right into the bicep, and then more mobility in the shoulder, but pretty similar, the typical mobility. This head is only left and right. I never noticed that because the head itself, it's really stiff. I think the head is supposed to move, but this one's really stiff, so I'm not going to mess with it. But there's no mobility in the neck. And the web gear probably is removable if you would know how to do that. I don't see that it's got a clip. Oh, maybe here. No. Oh, yeah, right there. So it is removable. Comes off right there. Right there and right there. All right. So the web gear is removable, and then you get just a regular Cobra Trooper without the black web gear, obviously. They use this body for the Cobra Trooper, the Cobra Officer, this Cobra Air Trooper, and the Flint in Cobra Disguise figure. I have one of those. One of these days I'll get to it. The hands, I have the new mold Snake Eyes that came out of the box set with the musical button. Both hands on that Snake Eyes broke off. Luckily I've never broken off the hands of any of these other figures. So that Snake Eyes just must have had weak wrists. But this new mold is pretty good condition and pretty good build. And it's not discoloring much. It's probably around 20 years old, right? Around that, 20 years old. But my complaint with those new molds always was they're disproportionate. The legs are a little too long and the head's a little too small. That's how it is. And now let's compare it with the retro. So the retro head, you can see. Let's see. Well, it's hard to tell here, but in person, the retro head does look a little bit bigger, but maybe it's just the hair. And the body, well, now that I'm looking at it, the body is similar, but you notice how the arms are thicker. The Cobra Trooper on the card has bigger biceps, and that helps. That chest cut looks pretty clean on that carded figure. It has the T-waist instead of the diaper waist. I think that's what they call it. It has the joint at the thighs, double jointed pinless knees, and then I'm thinking maybe it has ankle twists. Well, it probably has ankle articulation, maybe shin articulation too. But as you can tell, those legs are even a little bit thicker as well. It's hard to see. It's definitely a complete one-piece mold instead of the two halves that the new molds were. That's one solid round leg. So that's helps with the articulation. And the rifle is an upgrade. It is a little bit bigger overall. Let's see. The stock is bigger. The scope is bigger. It's a little bit longer. If you can pick that up. And what I noticed, it looks like the scope is removable. It looks like the scope is not attached right now. Let's see if you can see that. Yeah, it looks like it's just resting there and it slips into something. It's hard to see. One of these days I might open this, but maybe if I find a loose one day, I'd rather do that. And it also came with the sidearm, a knife, and a bazooka. Now the knife is a knife and not really an ice pick looking dagger like came with this one. And I think the new mold Cobra Commander also has a very similar dagger, which more looks like an ice pick, but that's what Cobra Commander had since 1982 on his leg. The helmet, obviously, look at the helmet. The helmet is a lot bigger. Oh no, it doesn't want to stand now. The helmet is a lot bigger on the retro figure than the new mold. And that's mostly for the hair, but it's just less easy to lose. The sidearm must go there in the pouch. Looks like there's a holster on the leg. Or maybe that's for the knife, maybe that's for the sidearm. And he's got another sidearm right here, as is pictured on his chest. All right, and it looks like that web gear comes off too, those shoulder straps. But as you can see, the forearms are much wider, and they went with same color gloves, so they saved a little bit money on the paint there. But I'm thinking the troopers had black gloves just like the officer. All right, and then we did a quick rundown on the back, a little bit of information. You see all the other available figures. I don't think I have any of those. Oh, the Stalker. Right, Stalker is the only one I have. And I guess they never got to the officer, so there won't be an officer in that retro line. They did re-release this officer with the ARAH body mold Cobra Trooper in that 2-pack around 2020, 2021 also. And there was a Duke and Cobra Commander 2-pack painted like the cartoon appearances, and the Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow 2-pack with the picture. The artwork was the 1985 Snake Eyes, but it was the 1982 body. I think they were the what's the word I'm looking for? Swivel arms, so we don't have to worry about that. And here's the file card for the Cobra officer. All right, so thanks for watching. Let's do something real fast. All right, we can kind of get a height comparison here. You can see these two. The lead trooper is taller. Obviously, they went from 3 3/4 inch to 4 inches. And then the retro, let's see if I can lay him down and get it closer. I'm thinking the retro and the new molds are about the same height too. So there's that. And real quick, when I was a kid and I saw the officer figure in person, because I had a trooper figure that someone stole from school one day, so I didn't have it very long. Oh no, wait, got that one. No, maybe that one got stolen. And I can't remember now. One of them got stolen, and then another friend said, hey, the other guy took it, so he ran and got it back for me. I think it was the Cobra officer. Then I was like, great, can't bring my toys to school ever again. So that was that. The officer has the gray pouch there, which I think are binoculars. So as a kid, the trooper didn't have the straps like this. The trooper had the basic straps. But this officer had all this extra gear, and I thought, oh, that's cool. The trooper is way cooler. And then the Stinger driver was this body mold painted gray, right? With the red logo. So the Stinger driver gets more gear than the trooper, which makes sense. The troopers are just in there to fire their weapons at the enemy. Unfortunately, they're also cannon fodder. So there's that. The AK-47, I think, only appeared for this trooper in the G.I. Joe ARAH line. Until, right? No, let me strike that. The Snow Serpent got the AK-47 too. So, all right, so never mind what I was trying to say there. They did reuse the AK-47. And in the classified line, for some reason, like everybody comments, they gave Sergeant Slaughter the AK-47. And the AK-47, I think historically, is always the enemy weapon. I don't know that the U.S. military, armed forces, have AK-47s as weaponry. Some troopers out in the field in the battle may have to pick up AK-47s because they are very reliable weapons. As long as you can get bullets for them, they'll almost always fire. So that's obviously why they're popular amongst the bad guys. It saves on a lot of money. But the USA usually, which is interesting, when I was growing up, every time I saw an army soldier, they were carrying an M16 that looked similar to this. So that was interesting. Even in the 80s and well into the 90s, U.S. military always had M16s that looked similar to the M16s that came with the 1982 Cobra troopers. So again, we every now and then comment on how Hasbro gets a few things wrong with the classified figures, where it's like a quote-unquote bonehead mistake, like giving Sergeant Slaughter the AK-47, right? So there's things like that. But in 1982, they gave the enemy the weapon of the U.S. Armed Forces. Again, because the M16 is a very reliable weapon as well. That's as far as my knowledge goes. All right. So here we are with my Cobras in this go around for this video. So thanks to those of you that like, share, and subscribe. Thanks to those of you that comment as well. I try and respond to all the comments. I think I've done that so far. And, you know, full transparency, I don't get many comments, so it's still easy to do that. So comment while I can respond. How about that? All right. Cobra!